Hey guys, welcome to Goodwill Dynamics. Got me, Joshua, and Adam around the round table here today, and we want to try something a little bit different for you. Today, we're going to make a video highlighting some of the good news out there, the good news stories, positive stories that you don't normally hear about, and just have a little bit of a discussion about them, and sharing the actual positivity that's happening in the world that we don't always see. So we got a couple of neat stories for you today, and we're just gonna play it by ear. This is a new concept, so we'll read off the stories, and we'll do a quick little discussion into them, and just sort of feel out each other's insights and stuff. So Adam, do you want to be our news reader this time around?
Do it, you bet. This first story comes to us from goodnewsnetwork.org. 60 visitors got snowed in at a UK pub for 3 days and loved it. When 60 revelers went for a night in the UK's highest pub, snowdrifts and a downed power line ensured they got more time at the bar than they bargained for. Yet between an Oasis cover band, tabletop games, trivia, and sing-along Christmas carols, 3 whole days in which no one who entered could leave passed in holiday cheer, and the guests loved every minute of it. They're all in good spirits, quote. They're all eating and drinking well, said the owner of Tan Hill Pub, Andrew Healds, to CNN. Tan Hill can be found in Swallow in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales in northeast England, 1,732 feet above sea level, making it the highest sitting pub in the UK. Yeah. So that's our first story. Do you want me to read the second one, or should we pick that up later?
No, let's get into this one a little bit. So I mean, this is kind of an amazing story to me. It's not like a huge, maybe someone wasn't saved from drowning or falling off a cliff or something, but it's kind of a lovely story nonetheless. Like it really shows, in a sense, what we're after, right? The spirit of goodwill and what it really means. It's like this is kind of the opposite of a lot of the stuff we've been hearing about, or certainly we're hearing about in the past with COVID, right? And everyone's kind of like on their own now, and they're fighting in the supermarkets and stuff, and the shelves are bare. And here you have a situation where you have a bunch of strangers. I mean, I don't know how many of them were strangers, I guess, but you have a bunch of random people together in a pub. They get snowed in, and I mean, they all have it in them to have a delightful time, right? If they take the right attitude towards it, if they show positivity towards the situation and each other, and just kept things going for days on end. So I think it's beautiful for how basic it is, right? It's the kind of thing we could all kind of practice every day.
It's interesting how the goodness in people sometimes only comes out when there's like an imposition or trouble or something. Like people normally would just sort of blow past each other on the street, or not reach out to other people or even say hi and stuff. But when there's like a disaster or something that's forcing them to all be together, then you can actually see some goodwill. So it's interesting how sort of opposites lead to the other thing.
Yeah, it's I think that's a true principle that often, not always, but often difficult circumstance brings out the best in all of us. Certainly didn't hurt that they were in a pub that at least they had some shelter and lots of I'm assuming plenty of alcohol, and but the article talks about how the pub owners made everybody comfortable, made them beds, and I'm sure kept them.
And the forethought, because when the owners knew that it was going to snow, they made sure to stock up on a bunch of extra food food and water. So in case something happened, be a lot less goodwill if there wasn't food and water. Well, who knows? But it was good. It was good to prepare. Is one way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, it really is a lovely story. And yeah, just people getting along continuously like that. I like, you mentioned that sometimes it takes a kind of adverse situation to make people, to bring out the good in people, right? To make them actually act on it. And I feel like, people really want to do that. And it's a shame that, I think we just get into certain habits of mind. Our brains just kind of like they've been on this track of being a certain way, thinking a certain way, behaving a certain way towards other people. And, it's like I think a lot of people are just dying to be like more, merrier and more joyful and share more with others and stuff. And it's just, sometimes it does require this little push to take you out of these previous habits.
Yeah, well, how bad things have gotten with various issues over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the sort of cartoon in the article there?
I'm not sure.
The people are coming out of the lodge, and then there's some bus that says Omicron variant is coming, and there's some old lady hobbling along the street, and there's some guy looking at his cell phone and these other things, and they're just like, I think we'll stay,
Yeah.
So yeah, that cartoon was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, there's just all this like crap in the world, and yeah, it highlights the value of community, or just doing positive stuff with people and having some good, genuine interactions.
Well, and it's a manageable number of people in an enclosed space. Like, the cartoon is it's interesting because it shows like outside, it's all this kind of like loosely organized, like very diffuse group of people who don't really know each other. And, there's, like you just simmer in this mistrust and this kind of like, I don't quite know the other person, this uncertainty. And that builds into all these larger fears, let's say. And you got this little pub with the lights on, and you got, what was it, 30 people inside or 50 people. And they all know each other, they all see each other, they all got to live with each other in the little pub. And there's some kind of lesson in that too, right? It's like it's a contained and knowable group of people.
I'm looking forward to the reunion story when they do this again next year. All right.
That'll be interesting.
We want to get together and do it, and let's make it a little harder this time. No alcohol.
People will start paying thousands of pounds or whatever just to live the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice one. That was very, very heartwarming story. Do you have another story, which is, I guess, a little more serious or a little more profound?
Yeah, this is something. This one.
Yeah, and this one is great in its own way, but it deals with a little bit of a more serious issue.
Well, let's just get into it.
Sure, let's get into it. Adam, go ahead and that next story is a doozy. Let's get into that one.
This one comes from insider.com. It's titled Rapper Logic's Song 1-800-273-8255, titled after the phone number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, saved hundreds of lives, a study found. A song by the rapper Logic. That's a repeat, I apologize. The study found that in the 34 days after 3 events, the song's release, the 2017 MTV Video Music Awards and the 2018 Grammy Awards, where the song was promoted. The Lifeline got an additional 9,915 calls, an almost 7% increase in the expected number for that time period. The researchers think the song contributed to a decrease of 245 suicides compared to what was projected for that time span. Logic's song 1-800-273-8255 was associated with a large increase in calls to Lifeline. A reduction in suicides was observed in the periods with the most social media discourse about the song, the study concluded.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that's I really think that's amazing because it's so like you couldn't send. This is like someone who has access to like this just mass communication mechanism, right? He's a famous rapper. Millions of people listen to what he says. And you couldn't get like a clearer, more crisp message, right? It's sort of like very hard to garble message of hope by just giving people literally someone to talk to, right? Giving people a number that they can call if they have this particular problem. It just cuts through the noise, like you can try to send some sort of more complicated message about hope and stuff, and maybe that'll have some effectiveness, but I just think there's something to the fact that he just took this opportunity with this giant megaphone to just like direct people to this very specific resource.
Yeah, it's not flashy at all. There's no glamour to it. I mean, well, I haven't listened to the song. The song might be quite good, but it's just the idea of like, here's the suicide hotline number. Maybe you didn't know about this.
Yeah.
Like how many resources on a smaller scale, how many resources might you know about that are helpful to people that you could just bring up in a conversation at some point? That might really help out, somebody in your life. On such a large scale, it's pretty impressive. I mean, saving 245 people's lives theoretically, boy, if I could do something like that and have that kind of an effect, that'd be great.
Start scribbling in your notebook, scribbling those rhymes. But I think you're right. Part of it's just the awareness of that such resources, because people have some kind of background awareness that they exist, but just like hearing it from someone like that and it's like, oh yeah, this is an option. This is actually something that's before me to be chosen potentially, right? It's like, it puts it a little bit more in the forefront.
Well, I meant resources in a very broad sense, not just like the suicide hotline or soup kitchens or things like that, but just like, oh, I know about this idea. And then it's like, wow, somebody else didn't know about it, and that's really helpful to them, or opens up their mind to something. Like even something like that, it's just like you bring something to somebody that they didn't know about, and it's potentially really helpful or life changing to them.
Yeah.
Or even if you're holding back, saying something like, some kind words to them or encouragement. Like Jordan Peterson, he's broke down a few times from how touched he was that like how little encouragement people have gotten and how much difference it's made, from people telling him, about hearing him say what he said about things.
I think the medium of music deserves note here. I think it's unique. Any other delivery system, I don't think accomplishes the same thing, and that includes a multitude of different varieties of ways that we're inundated with information these days, right? You could do a video, you could have a celebrity type thing, an event, but there's something about delivering it through a song that makes it memorable and stick in your mind. You think about how many songs where you can think, oh yeah, that's got a number, it gets repeated, and then it's in my head and I know it. And you think about how this is how information was delivered in the past. It's the bard singing.
Just imagine if we made a video called "Here's the Suicide Hotline Number." I'm sure that would be super popular. But your point, yeah, about it being a song, that's really
it's how it sticks in your psyche and becomes embedded in the culture. You know, this is how they deliver, you know, a rhyme. You know, it's genius using a rhyme because it's short, repetitive, it's easily memorized, and it's, you know, played to a rhythmic beat and whatnot. And so, you know, just like in times of old, this is how information was delivered. You know, there was nursery rhymes, or, you know, the entertainer of a group singing. This is how song, you know, history was kind of passed along in a lot of ways. And so I think, I don't think the same thing could have been accomplished with in any other means. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think music's unique to this.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, that's the whole key, because, like you say, when something's simple and repetitive, it stays with you, and so it's there in the right moment. You know, you could hear about something like this and think, oh, that's interesting, and then it's just not there in the right moment, or it's this very faint memory. So yeah, I think you're definitely right. I mean, that gives it more, makes the message more resilient, sort of.
The interesting thing they mentioned at the end of the article is that when people mention suicide, it usually leads to like people feeling worse and more suicide. But if you talk about it with a certain framing, that's a more positive, uplifting message that did.
Yeah.
You know, versus like if you compare that to Suicide Solution from Ozzy Osbourne, for example, you know, you maybe see a little bit of the contrast.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, it's about perspective. I mean, it's about, because if people already have thoughts of suicide in their mind, then yeah, you could just be feeding the fire, unless you're talking about the same thing in a different way, right? You're connecting in a different way, like you said, some kind of a more positive spin on the situation, or, you know, the idea that, like, this, yeah, here's this phone number that could be some help to you. It's like it's taking the same situation, but it's putting a different perspective on it. So that actually, it takes the momentum of the suicidal thinking, let's say, or whatever the problem is, and kind of flips it a little bit.
Yeah, you build sort of a bridge to it being bad to then going better. And so you've already started this sort of momentum in that direction for the person cognitively.
Mhm.
An interesting dichotomy with the means of communication that we have, that we can be so on top of the world and the world in our face, and yet there's this sense of isolation, right? Where we have a world where people are feeling isolated, they're feeling this despair. And so you know, you have these two opposites, and so it's nice to see um, you know, media being used and somebody thinking, you know, along the lines of goodwill, and how can I use what we do have to connect to the world to help with this isolation. And I know there's, you know, there are more instances of this during the last couple of years that we've been through, but this is, you know, a unique way that they've been able to communicate and bridge that gap between the isolation and the instant availability of the needed information.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, you know, over time, things kind of synthesize together in more and more positive ways, right? Like, we have all this new stuff, and some of it's got some like scary or negative places, but, you know, I think over the long term, it stabilizes into more positive uses. So
I think that's right. I think that's a great point.
yeah.
Yeah, technology always has this curve, right? Where we figure out all the different uses for it. And by technology, I'm speaking very broadly, not just things that, you know, run through a copper wire, but all the different means of advancement in society. And you go through this arc where, you know, and you get the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then over time we kind of figure that out, and that is evolution, and It speaks to more than just a physical evolution. There's a spiritual element to that evolution, and I think humanity truly, at their heart, they want to have goodwill, they want to do good things, and they want the universe to progress in a positive way.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's like those folks in the pub, right? They just need that little external motivator, full of warmth and joy and goodwill for your neighbor.
We're here. We might as well make the best of it.
Yep. Well, guys, I guess we've talked our way through it. Anything else to add before we get going?
Like, share, subscribe, and let us know if you found any good stories in the comments. These were from, what was it, goodnews.com, and what was the other place?
We had goodnews.com. One of them was an article in Insider.
Yeah.
Insider.
So be sure to check them out. They've got some good stuff, at least, it sounds like.
Yeah. Right,
Goodnewsnetwork.org.
Yeah. Give all credit
What was
to
that?
Goodnewsnetwork.org.
links.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the description.
Thanks for coming by and hanging out. We hope you enjoyed your time here. We'll be putting, I think, a few of these out over the next weeks, so keep your eyes peeled for them. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
May goodwill be with you, and you be with goodwill.
Indeed, indeed.